Hello everyone, I'm Justin Kova, and today I'm going to present you my completely linguistic analysis of a real new article from Ecuador. My research focuses on a very specific question. How does the sentence structure of Ecuadorian journalist Spanish influence the way Ecuadorian learners produce equivalent sentences in English? Yeah, really big question. So, to answer this, I choose, let me a moment before share the screen. So, for this, for for this presentation, I choose a news. I choose a news approximately 180 words long. Perfect for this kind of analysis, alright? The article reports on a public security event written in informal journalist language. From this text, I choose three key sentences to examine in depth across all four linguistic levels: the phonetic, phonologic, the morphologic, syntax, and pragmatic. So, like you can see, what I found systematic difference between Spanish. Well, what is the objective of this presentation? Obviously, is to find the difference between Spanish and English that cause predictable errors when Ecuadorian learners try to translate directly from their native language. So let's start it. Okay. So. We have first of all, I'm going to speak about the question and the context before the theoretical before the theoretical framework. First, let's define the problem and the third question. The test analysis displays typical features Ecuadorian journalist Spanish used to two types of passive voice. The reflexive passive like se ha confirmado and the analytic passive like fue encontrado. It also builds very long sentences with multiple prepositional phrases and placement elements in order that is perfectly natural in Spanish, but not completely different from English, but completely different from the English. This brings me to me and my central question. Like I said before, this question matters because Spanish and English organize information in fundamentally different ways. Spanish allows specific words, order has unique reflexive passive constructive. English requires receive subject, verbs, object, order, than uses passive voice differently. So when learners try to translate Spanish habits directly into English, they may consist systematic errors. Identify those errors is the first step toward fixing them. So that's the objective of this presentation. All right. So let's start with the theoretical frameworks. The theoretical frameworks. First of all, I want to I have to say I use these important authors for the presentation, like Anderson, Geiser, Cruz Ferreira, Abraham, and like Boughton Spau. They are really important authors because like use the teacher say, we remake the reading of these books. So it was the pillar of this presentation. Well, first of all, we have the theoretical framework. We are going to structure like the passive voice, the consecutive order, the phrasing structure rules, the conversion and impreciture, the bound versus free morphemes, and interlingual transfer. This is the objective, how to understand why is the difference on this with the Spanish and the English. So, the key concepts. We have the passive voice. In the passive voice in Spanish, we can say se ha confirmado, a reflexive passive that doesn't exist in English at all. English passive requires the verb be plus a past participle, as in it has been confirmed that you can see, it's not the same thing. It have to be another context. The constitutive order in Spanish is fairly ranger subjects, verb, and objects. English is almost always subject first, then verb, then object. The phrase structure rules these govern how words combine into phrases in sentences. Spanish and English follow different rules. The bound versus free morphemes. Spanish starts ending to mark gender and numbers on nearly every noun and adjective. English rarely does this. The conversion imprecitor, what it suggests but not directly state, Spanish and English express content differently. In interlingual transfer, this is in the core concept. Learners naturally carry habits from their first language, like I say, into their second language. Lightball and SPA confirm that explicitly teaching the difference between the two languages reduce errors. With these frameworks in place, let's move to the actual analysis. So, we have the linguistic analyze in four levels. The first level is the phonetic and phonology. The second level is the morphology and word structure. The third level is the syntax sentence structure. And for the last one is the pragmatics mean context. So, I make a syntax analyze for. First of all, we started with the phonetic and phonology. So, first level sounds and pronunciation. Even though our corpus is written, we analyze how it is spoken and standard Ecuadorian Spanish. I identified three key phonological features. The final S is often pronounced with expression like a soft a sound and the end of the syllables. In the case of intervocal, it between the vowels, vowel, vowels becomes very weak or disappears entirely on the sentences. And the better X. The G sound is pronounced with a strong friction in Ecuadorian Spanish. This is more like or the part of the or language. So, but let's go with the second level, the phonology word structure. For this news, I found 15 words, and I tried to make a really to compare it with the English. Spanish markers genders and numbers, nouns and adjectives by its bone or suffix like o, a, s. English mark numbers like only with s and almost not gender. In English, we don't have the gender of the things like la silla, la cámara, el cuarto, you know? Learners frankly they forget again or apply it incorrectly in English. That you can see, you can see the difference. And obviously, they have different morpheme breakdown. So, let's start with the second one. This is the most important part because this is the all the object of this presentation. The syntax sentence structure. In this case, we are going to analyze the syntax, the structure of these sentences from the news, and we can see what is the strong difference between the English. So, let's start it with the first one. La mañana de este viernes 23 de julio, etcétera, etcétera. So, I put the time first phrase, la mañana de este viernes. In the case of the verb, se ha confirmado this is a reflexive passive. En el caso de NP, o sea, so the subject, la muerte del reo. So what we notice, the subject, la muerte, comes after the verb. Completely normal in Spanish, but in English requires the subject before the verb. Also, the reflexive passive se ha confirmado doesn't exist in English. It must be rewriting as it has been confirmed that, like you know, is completely different. Let's go to another example. El interno joven 65 de 26 años, etcétera, etcétera. The sentence is split into the NP is the subject, el interno José, obviamente. El BP es el passive verb, fue encontrado, was found. The PP, all details, where, who, when. Que what you can see sin vida, en el área, está madrugada. This is an elective passive, ser on past participle. Obviously, in Spanish we can see those difference, but in English it's really obvious. English is also used passive, but it strictly requires the verb to be to match tenses exactly. Learners often forget to help in verb use the wrong form. And for the last one, we had look disorder tree. The PB is the place, esa zona. The verb, habitants sacado. The NP es the object, el cuerpo. The NP es the real subject, un grupo de internos. In Spanish, the subject can go last. That is perfectly acceptable. But what is the difference with the English? English always puts the subjects first. Spanish flexible word order doesn't not work in English. This is the first rule cause the word orders errors. Well, further, for the level 4, we have the pragmatic meaning in context. The news article reports quienes manifestaron que aparentemente su compañero se había quitado la vida. Notice the word aparentemente. The critics are being carefully, they are reporting what others says, not claiming it as this established fact. That is the cautious language. The cautious language. All right. So, um, I ignore this part. So what is the pedagogy application I try to make in this context? So what does this mean for teaching English? And what can we do about it? My analysis shows three big problems areas. The Spanish reflexive passive that doesn't exist in English. Spanish flexible word order. English needs rigid S, B, O. Spanish puts caution words later, but in the case of the English, puts them early. So there's really big difference that we had to teach our new students English. My teaching activity. Well, students take sentences directly from this new article in Spanish order and must. Find the subject and move to it first. So this is really important to make this exercise. Like try to make a translation, but not directly translation. So for this exercise, we are going to find the subject and move it first. Rewrite the passive from se ha trasladado. This has been confirmed that se ha confirmado. Compare the version with correct English. Obviamente tratando de obviously um, try to understand the correct English with the heroes, what they made. And notice exactly what changed. Obviously, we have to see what changed on this practice or this activity. All right. So what is my conclusions? Well, I put it in different levels. Obviously, the sounds, the words, the sentences, and the context. In the case of the sounds, soft final consonants obviously can be really different. The French concept week in Spanish is really completely different. The words have different genders for the numbers for everywhere. But in the case of the English, it has almost no one, so it can be confusing for the students. The sentences, it's have to free order and flexible passive in the case of Spanish, but in the case of the English, they have rigid rules like the is, be, o, the be passive, so they can make big errors. And the context, obviously, the caution words later, it can be make change all the context on the words. So it's really important to English put them in first for fix this error. So what is my conclusion? Linguistics is a really interesting course, and I love it because this linguistic we can really analyze the context of the language, the problems depending the place, depending the student, depending of everything. So it's really important to understand. It try to make a real syntactic, make a linguistic analyze of these problems. So thank you so much. It was a pleasure to make this presentation, and that will be all. Thank you.